Hello, this is the Santiago y Miguelon Podcast recording. In our show, we break down complex concepts into simple content.
We do this by applying the Socratic method, where one of us is the teacher and the other is the student. Our chats range from anything, fintech, Web3, to security.
And hi, I'm Michael, a serial entrepreneur experienced in fintech. I talk about startups and I'm always looking for ways to improve life.
And I am Santiago. I love finding solutions to complex problems. I focus on the intersection of people and technology. I navigate the world with both an innovator's mind and a security hat. Let's kick it off, Michael.
Welcome to the show. Hey, Santiago, how are you?
All good, Michael. Thanks. And you?
I'm doing fantastic. We have a really fun show for today. The pilot episode is called Scam Me Once, Shame on You. Scam Me Twice, Shame on Me. And we will then conduct a forensic analysis of an NFT scam that happened to me a few weeks back. I actually owned a Pudgy Penguin NFT and it was worth around $10,000 USD. As it turned out, I signed a malicious contract with my MetaMask wallet and then I didn't have it anymore.
Oh man, I'm really sorry. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. I learned my lesson from it.
But I think that I hear a couple of terminologies not clear for me. Can you help me with the following? You said wallet, you said smart contract, NFT, and blockchain. What are those?
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense to talk a little bit more about that. Also for our listeners to follow along. Let's start with the first one, a wallet, right? In Web3, they can be either a software or a hardware wallet. So either it's something that just lives on your computer or it's actually something physical, which you can plug into your computer. That wallet will store your cryptographic keys and enables you to sign smart contracts. And then I was talking about MetaMask. It's one of the brands of wallets that exists, and it's a browser extension for example, Google Chrome, but it can also be an app on your phone.
Okay.
Then the other thing was a smart contract. So that's a piece of code that is actually deployed on the blockchain. That code itself will then interact with elements of the blockchain, such as cryptocurrencies, NFTs, or even other smart contracts.
Okay. Everything started making sense.
Nice. And then the most important part, the NFT. What is that then? I spoke about a Pudgy Penguin NFT. So NFT is an abbreviation for non-fungible token, which in itself is a record on that blockchain, which is then associated to a particular digital asset. As I said, one use case of NFT is then a piece of artwork, which can then be displayed or used as a profile picture for your social media. The one that I hold was Pudgy Penguin. It's a collection that started somewhere around in the summer of 2021.
So that means that technically I could claim ownership on a JPEG that I hold in my computer.
Yeah, I think you can put it that way. I don't think you will hold the image on your computer. It will probably be stored somewhere on the cloud. But yes, you then can prove that you own that particular piece of image.
Okay, cool.
Then the last thing, maybe obvious for everybody, but we should just make sure it's covered, right? Blockchain, that's a distributed ledger with strong immutable properties. And you can think of it in a way as a database, which lives on many computers in the world and keeps track of transactions in Web3. So let's take an example where I then transfer maybe some cryptocurrency to you. That transaction, that transfer of assets is then recorded on that blockchain.
All right. Actually, you are helping me to remember my cryptocurrency and blockchain lecture I had some months ago. So thanks for that. All the concepts are coming back.
Awesome. Well, I mean, let's test it a bit though, because given that you had that workshop and then also given the fact that you are a cybersecurity expert, the one thing that I'm still kind of struggling with understanding is that NFT, like I own it or now I don't own it anymore, but where does it live? Like, do I have that NFT within my wallet?
Yeah, that's a good question, Michael. That's a very common misconception. So the term wallet might lead us to believe that it is some kind of box that we have and we can just put tokens or cryptocurrency inside. This is actually not completely right. And I think that you hit really an important concept when you say that your wallet actually helps you to claim ownership of an asset. And this ownership is stored on the blockchain. What that means is that your wallet is a combination of three elements: your public key, that is how people will recognize that it's your wallet. You can think it as an identifier. Your private key, that is the cryptographic material that allows you to claim ownership on this wallet. And third, software or hardware that help you to manage transactions and interactions with the blockchain.
Gotcha. But that sounds really different, right? So if I try to rephrase that quickly, so that means that a wallet in Web3 is you have a public key, which is basically your wallet address. Then there's a private key, which only you know, which with you sign transactions. And then your wallet is also some software that helps you manage and sign these transactions. That's what it is. And that sounds so different from what a wallet is as I know it, right? Like the one that I physically carry with me in my pocket, in which I have these coins that are, if they are in that wallet, they are mine. I think it's a really interesting change of mind that you need to have in order to start working with Web3.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most important ones. That and decentralization, I believe that those are the hardest steps for people to make in Web3.
All right, now moving on to the part where I got hacked.
That's a sad but interesting part, Michael. And luckily enough, you recorded what actually happened just after the incident. So that is what we will be listening to now. And for the ones that are only listening to us, this part is highly visual, but we are going to try to bring you through what is actually happening and what you are seeing.
So this is how it all went down. I was on my phone browsing Twitter on my way to work, and I get tagged in this quote tweet with a whole bunch of other people, and it's referring to what looked like an original tweet by the Pudgy Penguin issuers. So I'm not paying a lot of attention, click into it. And then in this case, the message said you could claim your second season Pudgy Penguin by going to this link. So yeah, the link, it might look a little bit suspicious, but it looks authentic enough with the .com. I was not doing a lot of proper due diligence when I clicked into the link. I will now go to the actual website that I clicked into because that's not this one. This one doesn't seem legit at all. The one I got into was this one here, right? So it says claim free Pudgy Penguin season 2 to fight with the Pudgy Penguins that you own, and I own one. So the website looks completely on brand and nothing suspicious here. I just went about, claiming the Pudgy Penguin. And when I claim it, that's when it will start connecting with my MetaMask wallet. And don't worry, for this particular exercise now, I've actually created a completely new wallet, a burner wallet. Nothing will be stolen if I connect it. As you also saw just now, while I clicked the claim link, it redirected to my MetaMask. And now within MetaMask, there is a browser that will open up that URL. So it makes things even more obscure and obfuscated for me to really find out what's happening. So I press claim. Then this message appears. I have already connected my wallet, but now I get a transaction. Like it asks me to sign a certain message. I'm oblivious to what is happening. Of course, I see some potential threat here, but I sign the message. And then the moment I do that, nothing happens. There's no like, hey, you now got, you got your Pudgy Penguins. Nothing of the sort, right? So I tried clicking again, signing it again, and nothing happens. And this is when the theft has already occurred.
Oh man, every time I listen to this recording, I get sad again. But okay, you walk us through how the hack actually happened, how the fraudster got into you, and what was your mental state at that moment?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I had to take some time to really think that through. And I think there's 3 elements to it that contributed to this mental state. The first one is I was commuting. I was actually on the bus. So I'm just always paying less attention than I would do if I were at home or at work and then I'm behind my laptop, right? Then the second thing is I hadn't slept very well that day. I just had a newborn, which is keeping me up. And then the third thing, of course, is FOMO, clearly. And it's not necessarily the financial part of it. Of course, it'd be great to buy into an NFT at the right time and see that financial upside by holding it. But it's actually more on the social side of things that I really generated FOMO. I was on Twitter a lot that week, reading and absorbing all kinds of information from influencers. And it's like, if I want to be part of the Pudgy Penguin community or of Twitter and Web3, then I need to act on things, right? I need to be participating in all of this. So I think that really pushed me into the mental state that I was in when the scam happened.
Thanks for sharing. And I think that's very important to understand also that there is all of your reactions were really human, right? So when we want to make sure that we use a technology in the best possible way, that should also consider our natural human reactions. We will be tired. We will have this sense of FOMO, urgency. We all want to get rich overnight. So I think the fact that you shared that is also very important for this forensic analysis. So thanks for that.
What is then your take on all of this, Santiago? Like with your technology hat on, what can you say?
Well, I think there is a lot to unpack. So there is new technologies, there is old tricks. But I think that before starting, I need to confess something, because one of the things that you asked me is, Santiago, what actually happened technically? So that's a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. So I am in technology for several years already. I have been in cybersecurity as well for some years. And I am somehow up to date on this Web3 movement. I am definitely not an expert, but I must confess it took me reasonable effort to understand what happened. So I can also recognize that there is such a cognitive effort for everyone else, for the layman, to kind of put everything together and what is happening. In the high level, what happened is a malicious website asked you to connect your wallet to it. That gave them access to your address. Then the same malicious website asked you to sign a contract, which in fact was allowing them to transfer out NFTs. And finally, the scammer, the fraudster, with this allowance, with this contract, took all your NFTs away from you.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very sophisticated, this fraud, then, no?
Well, the sophistication comes from the technology. Web3 is new. There is a lot of new building blocks. But I actually recognize a typical scam. Think about that Web3 doesn't exist. What happened is a fraudster misappropriated something that was belonging to you through some gap in your understanding or technology or lack of context. And at the end, the scammers are businessmen, and they just found that there is a huge gap that they can abuse in Web3. And remember that at the end, it doesn't matter if it's Web3 or Web4 or Web5. They are an ever-evolving adversary. Right? They will just keep up with the progress. They will keep up finding new stuff.
Gotcha. I mean, we've spoken about this before. The fact that scammers are actually businessmen themselves, right? I find that such a insightful perspective where it makes sense for these people to do whatever it is they do. It's just that it is considered illegal. But they are just as the both of us they're entrepreneurs. But what do you mean, like ever evolving adversary? Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yes, sure. So think about, you said they are entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs are always looking into the next thing. So they're trying at the end to maximize their financial rewards, right? And when we close a gap, when we close a door, when we make their life harder security-wise, they cannot make money with their old attacks. They need to evolve to be able to continue in their line of business. So it is a cat and mouse game. Every time we put a new defense, they learn from it, and then they find a new way to exploit it. We will never get rid of them. They will evolve in their techniques. And maybe one day we convince them to change business because everything is so secure digitally that they decide to go to another domain. I find it hard to believe, but at the end, they will move along with us.
But then that begs the question, like, who is responsible for scams? Who is responsible for making that environment more secure? Who will then make sure that these scammers have a hard time in Web3, right? I think eventually the user is responsible, but as a whole ecosystem, we could do a lot better into designing Web3 tools, the wallets that we're using, or maybe how certain transactions are interpreted. What is your opinion?
I totally agree with you. It's both ways. So it's at an individual level, we need to make sure that whatever we do, we understand. But at the frontier of these Web3 new technologies, as a community, we also need to make it more accessible to people that don't necessarily are experts in technology, cybersecurity, or that are the whole day into that. Like you have a really good understanding of all this new landscape. And for yourself was even hard. I have a background in technology, and for myself was hard. So as developers of this new technology, these new protocols, we need to make sure to make the place so secure that our grandma can interact with it. We have a long way still, but I hope that in the next years, I can confidently say to my parents, to my aunts, look, in Web3, you can feel safe because people are watching over your back.
Yeah, so that now we understand a bit better how I got hacked and what exactly transpired. I think we can now get into that part of learning from this and maybe preventing this even from happening again, right?
Yes, and I think that now we're in the stage that we can give our listeners some tips and tricks about how to handle these scams, because at the end, the scammers will always be there.
Yeah, exactly. So then let's discuss what as a consumer you can do to protect yourself better. I think there are 4 steps in this whole scam part where you can start thinking a little bit more about certain things you should be watching out for. Those 4 steps are the mitigation before the actual scam happens. Then while you are in the scam, how to see the signs. The third one would be after, unfortunately, that scam happened, what is that mitigation I can do to contain the outcome of the scam? And then the 4th one is a potential recovery, right? So I'm going to walk you through those 4 steps. This list is definitely also not exhaustive. I want to point out there might be multiple ways of going about this, but these are at least the things that I found on my journey when I was trying to go through this process. So if we go into the first step, the mitigation before the actual scam, something I should have done, and which I now luckily did, is I should have gotten a hard wallet that is not directly connected to the internet. I did not have that. I actually had all of my NFTs in that MetaMask wallet, which is a hot wallet and directly connected to the internet. I think that's step 1. Then another thing you can potentially think about is keeping your, so to say, minting wallet separate from your holding wallet. So where I would maybe mint that NFT in that airdrop or whatever it is, if I had done that with a wallet where I only had some Ether to pay for transaction fees, then I would have never been suffering this scam, right? Like my NFTs would still be in that holding wallet. So I think that's the second thing you can think about. And the other thing might be more of a mindset that you need to get into, where you need to realize that some of your digital assets are starting to become very similar to some physical assets that you might be owning, right? So that golden ring, in a way, I mean, $10,000 for an NFT, it's in a way a golden ring that I have, but then online. Then the second step is seeing the signs during the scam. I think in hindsight, what I really realize now is that I should not have been doing all of this on my mobile phone. Of course, the mindset or the mental state was there with the commute and all that, but I should not have even been doing any of these kind of transactions on my mobile phone. That device is not giving me all of the flexibility, the functionality that I need in order to come up to a proper due diligence. So of course, you should also be doing diligence as to who is offering what, like also not ideally replying to certain maybe direct messages that you get from people on your Discord or your Twitter. Like be a little bit cautious, right? Same with the links that you are visiting. So in this case, I visited a link called pudgypenguins.gift. Looks very legit, but if I had checked, for example, in the Discord of the Pudgy Penguin collection, then I could have seen that it was not part of their official links list and quickly realized that it was not a proper website to go to. Right? The last one is making sure that you understand what transactions you are signing. And I know this sounds very obvious, but you'll be caught up a lot in the moment where you're just signing stuff and you're not really looking at what it is that you're signing. The third thing, if you do get scammed, then this is what you can do to kind of mitigate or contain the outcome of it. The moment that you realize that your wallet has been compromised, you can see it as something you should abandon right away. So you should create a whole new wallet with a new seed phrase and with a new wallet address. And then you can, if there's anything left, which in my case there actually was, you move everything out of that old wallet. So the compromised wallet, you make it empty, move it into your new wallet. And I think maybe this is the part that sounds a little bit silly or something that you might not think about, but it's also the feeling of being scammed. Like you maybe want to talk to people about it because it is, in a way, you've been stolen from. It's something that happened to you that might have an impact on you and where you perhaps want to seek some comfort by talking to somebody. The last thing is the recovery. And quite frankly, this is super, super tough. I have gone into it understanding what it would mean. MetaMask has set up some sort of an arrangement with a third party that will help you try and recover these assets. But the truth is, if these assets are not high enough in monetary value, which in my case, it looks like or sounds like it is, but they are recommending somewhere around the 70K to 80K mark, then only then it starts becoming interesting to engage such a third party to help you retrieve the assets. But things you can do is report a police report. You can do that online in your local jurisdiction or also at the FBI in the US. And you can reach out to all of these platforms with that police report. So I went to OpenSea. I told them that I've been suffering a scam, and they subsequently reported these NFTs to be involved in a fraud. Yeah, that's it. Those are the four steps that you can take in order to do something about your protection right now.
And maybe as a last tip in the recovery stage, you can also record a podcast to try to share your experiences.
That might actually be step 5. Correct.
But jokes apart, I think it's very important to share with the community what happened, because that's the only way that we start realizing that we still have some homework to do. And that actually ties into the next point, that is that what can we do to become better as a community, to design better systems, not necessarily only Web3, and what will be the necessary goals that should be there in any new technology so that it is somehow considered actually safe. Because it doesn't matter if it's in the physical world or it's in the digital world or it's in some kind of virtual reality one. I think that we need to work until the stage that we reduce the cognitive complexity of a field. For example, in this case is Web3, and everyone or the majority of our population is able to understand what is really happening. In your case, you receive a pop-up with some hash saying, do you approve this transaction? It's very hard to get this understanding of what are you actually seeing. If you think about it, we also had it at some point with the domain names, right? So do you remember that before we didn't have this green lock or actually this SSL mark? So you will not really easily see, oh, there is an HTTPS, that this tiny S was very important. And now browsers make it quite visible for you. Oh, you know in your mind, if there is not a lock, maybe it's not a website you should go into. And these are an example of reduction of cognitive complexity. The second point is increased context awareness. So what is happening around what you are seeing that can give you these hints? You mentioned one of your tips is you need to do due diligence. And then this due diligence needs to be somehow being able to deduce from context. For example, when we receive scam emails, we know that if they are in the junk box, those might be not the email that you want to go through. So somehow technology is giving you context awareness that in this context, the emails are high risk. So those are elements that are still not really smooth in Web3, and definitely we need to work towards that. The third point is any evolution of technology should be at least as safe as the predecessor, right? And security-wise, safety-wise, anti-scam, anti-fraud mechanisms have actually walked a long way in Web 2. We might be laughing about scam emails, but the people getting a scam actually are not that many these days. Why? Because there is scam filters. There are a lot of systems that are trying to reduce the probability of someone getting a scam. You have junk boxes. You actually know a lot more about phishing scam. And I think that's something that we should aim. Web 2 has reached some kind of maturity. It's not perfect. There is a lot of dark places in Web 2 as well. But Web 3 definitely should at least reach this Web 2 level. Of course, Web 2 is centralized, so it's very easy to apply very strong policies or opinions in a centralized manner. When you go decentralized, it becomes more complex. Right? And I think therefore the discussion, it is user responsibility, it is the community responsibility. Those are questions a bit harder to answer, but it's definitely something that we should be definitely working towards if we want this Web3 to be widely accepted. And maybe one last point that I want to mention here is we solve problems when they happen, right? But as founders of Web3 or new technologies, let's also learn from what happened before. Let's don't wait until, now we get the scams in NFTs or Web3. Let's start solving the scams. Let's take a look at history, at what happened before, and let's start from there. Let's don't allow that this happen if already happening in another kind of context.
And with that, we end today's pilot episode. Scam me once, shame on you. Scam me twice, shame on me.
And we covered a lot today, Michael.
We definitely did. I explained how I got scammed out of my Pudgy Penguin NFT through a malicious contract on a dodgy website and with some good old social engineering that really exploited my FOMO mental state.
Then we went more in depth on what exactly happened technically, and we have a bit of a discussion on who is responsible of keeping us safe.
Definitely. And then with me just now, we learned some ways as to how to avoid being scammed yourself.
And we also discussed that this will be scammers. And for mass adoption of the technology or any technology, we need to lower the complexity bar and make sure that we have a secure environment. That is done by properly designing our systems of the future.
Yeah, totally. So let's leave it at that. Thanks for listening to the Santiago and Miguelon Podcast.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.